Narrator, South America, in the 15th century. They appear out of nowhere. Within just a few decades, they build the largest empire in the world. The Incas, in Europe. There is talk of a country with fabulous gold deposits, somewhere in the Andes, worshipped by his people as a divine king. The Inca rules over an empire of 10 million people, from the steep highlands of the Andes to the deserts of the Peruvian coast. This culture appears mysterious and strange. Many things still raise questions and puzzle researchers even today. Who were these extraordinary people? The rulers saw themselves as sons of the sun. They believed their empire would last forever, until the arrival of Spanish conquistadors suddenly changed everything. This is the conquistador Francisco Pizarro. He will not give up until he has found the country Bairu, with its fabulous gold treasures. But in May of the year 1527, the situation seems hopeless when he disembarks at the beach of the Isla Gallo, in the north of South America. He has lost many of his men. The survivors are exhausted. Their greed for gold has long since given way to the naked fight for survival. A new supply ship is supposed to save them. Then he wants to make one final attempt. The Spaniard has no idea what is awaiting him in the New World. The Inca Empire, the most powerful and largest state on the continent. Its success story begins in the 15th century with someone who wants to change the world. Atmospheric flute, playing Pacacutec. As a victorious commander, he takes over power and proclaims his divine rank as the son of the sun god, Inti, a descent which, from then on, all Inca rulers will claim for themselves. With breathtaking speed, their empire expands. The Incas subdue over 200 tribes. Soon, they rule over an empire of 10 million people, boldly, mercilessly, and effectively. Male voice, Inca armies were incredibly numerous in terms of soldiers. 50,000, 100,000, and even more in certain cases. So it was a huge strength. The most successful Inca ruler and conqueror is probably Tupac Yupanqui, Pacacutec's son, who has conquered tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of kilometers squared. You can compare him to Genghis Khan or Alexander the Great, both the size of what he has conquered and the quickness of his conquest. Narrator, in just 80 years, the Incas conquer an area that stretches from present-day Chile and Argentina across the entire length of the Andes to Ecuador. A gigantic road network with 2 main and many secondary routes runs through the empire. At its intersection, the capital Cuzco with the Coricancha, the golden temple of the sun, a place that the Incas proclaimed the navel of the world. To this day, the Inca are surrounded by an aura of mystery. Written evidence of their culture and history has only been handed down from the time of Francisco Pizarro. What caused their meteoric rise? What role did their rulers play? Once again, Pacacutec returns to the capital from a victorious campaign. He is celebrated like a god. He believes himself to be almighty superhuman, inviolable as a ruler, and this is how his subjects see him. They are not even allowed to look their divine king in the eyes. Eke out. When a new Inca accessed the throne, he changed of essence. He was not a human being anymore. He was a son of Inti, the sun god, which makes him a kind of god himself, or semi-god. He could speak to the god and to the other Huacas, which was very important for maintaining balance in the world. In anthropology, we call this kind of ruler a divine ruler, the divine kingship, which is very different from, for instance, a European monarch who ruled by divine grace, but not by divine descent. Narrator, 3 rows of walls, made of granite blocks weighing several tons, piled up to 12 meters high, cut and polished by thousands of workers and transported here from quarries. Today, the temple complex Sacsayhuaman above Cuzco is a unique testimony to the Inca architecture. Female voice, yes. There are many secrets surrounding Sacsayhuaman. There is still very little known about the place. We don't know how they were able to move these large stone blocks and put them on top of each other. Narrator, built without cement and mortar, the stones are so perfectly anchored in the walls that not even a knife blade would fit in between, custom-made for an impenetrable bulwark. which also served as a place of worship, or was intended as such from the very beginning. Silva, Pacacutec, wanted to show the power of the Incas, the power of religion, the power of the gods. It was created as an enormous ritual place in Coricancha. It had a giant, spectacular gathering place with walls that displayed the deities, like, for example, lightning, water, or the puma. Narrator. The mysterious combination of the spiritual and profane, of domination and religion, seems to be common practice among the Incas. All across the empire, they erect new buildings, often in extremely inaccessible places. Epic, playing, but what purpose these gigantic buildings served has not yet been fully clarified. Why all these efforts? And why here of all places? Today, researchers assume that architectural marvels, such as the legendary royal palace of Machu Picchu, reflect, above all, the religious beliefs of the Incas, going back as far as their founding myths. In the beginning, it is said, there was only darkness and chaos, until the Creator created the stars, the moon, and the sun god. Inti chose the Incas as his children. As Inti's son, the Inca was to rule on earth, and turn disorder into order, just like the Creator in the sky. The powerful sun cult is the backbone of their state ideology. The ruler's actions are based on the old myths. Rhythmic drumming, male voice. The Inca developed an Andean culture that has the concept of the waka. It's a special place. Springs, rocks, mountains, streams, and so forth. And each one of these were imbued with certain power. And then the Inca took that concept, and they made it a little more sophisticated. And they turned it into a state religion that, in their view, justified their conquest of the Andes. Narrator, Huacas. This is what the Incas call their mighty natural sanctuaries, which, for them, are present everywhere in their empire, like landmarks of the gods. About 100 kilometers away from Machu Picchu, the old Inca city of Clocoquiro rises at an altitude of more than 3,000 meters. Pacacutec had its temples and palaces partly hewn vertically into the rocks. It has long been assumed that a holy place was a decisive factor for the choice of the location. When the first archaeologists uncovered the terraces on the western steep slope in the 1970s, an unexpected mosaic appeared. 24 llama figures with white slate inserted into the stone walls. Yacana, the llama, is considered a holy animal by the Incas, and they even see in the sky as a constellation. Pacacutec had left nothing to chance at this location. In addition, he had a whole mountaintop removed and transformed into a huge platform, making it possible to oversee the wide panorama of the mountains. Eke out, they choose specific places with sacred mountains, and they adapted the architecture to the nature, and not imposing architecture on nature, which is very different. This is what we call landscape architecture. You have examples at Machu Picchu. You have examples at Choqquiro. When everywhere you look, you see, wow, this is a wonderful point of view. This is because it's been felt that way by the Incas in order to worship this environment and to create a kind of scenario for the emperor himself as the center of the ceremonies, to communicate with all this landscape. Narrator, astronomical calculations have shown that in Choqquiro at the summer solstice, the sun rises exactly behind the Yanacocha Glacier worshipped by the Incas. 1470, the Incas conquer one state after the other. Their next destination, the coastal kingdom of the Chimu, with its metropolis, Chan Chan, chanting in foreign language. Their approach follows a simple strategy: cooperation or war, submission or death. It starts with a peaceful takeover bid. Precious gifts are presented to the Chima king. In return, the Incas demand buildings for their administration, craftsmen and men for military services as tribute. In view of the military superiority of the Incas, many tribal chiefs submit to the Inca. They exchange their power for the privileges offered. However, their hitherto independent rule is absorbed into the Inca Empire. The expansion of the Incas meant the suppression and destruction of societies that lived autonomously and had developed independently until then. The invasion stopped this development and turned these peoples into tribute payers. The tribute was a decisive social motivation for the Incas to conquer foreign peoples. Narrator Miguel Caneco has led the excavations in the Chima city of Chan Chan for over 20 years. He discovered how rigidly the Incas dealt with peoples who did not cooperate with them. The Chimu, famous for their architecture and craftsmanship, were a rich people with a centuries-old high culture. When Inca Tupac Yupanqui began to besiege their capital around 1470, for 10 years, the Chimu resisted. Then the Incas cut off the water supply. In the end, the proud Chimu had no choice but to bow their heads before the Incas. Caneco. The Incas had great interest in the Chimu kingdom because they had specialists. They had goldsmiths, ceramists, and great builders. Chan Chan is an example of their great architecture. From the beginning, the Incas intended to relocate these specialists for their own purposes. Narrator, the goldsmiths of the subjugated Chimu are brought to Cuzco to gild palaces and temples with their skills. Today, there are hardly any gold objects from the Inca period left. Only artifacts of the previous cultures give us an impression of what the legendary Inca gold might have looked like. Their greatest treasure, the most precious sanctuary in the whole country for the Inca and his people, is the Coricancha, Cuzco's main temple. The massive golden sun disk in its interior represents the earthly manifestation of the sun god, Inti. Here, the ruler holds a dialogue with the gods. Gold was a symbol for the sun. It had no material value. This can also be seen from the fact that it was called Tears of the Sun, and it was always used to worship or represent the sun. That's why the inside of the sun temple was lined with gold plates. The Inca ruler, who himself was the son of the sun, ate from golden dishes. The Inca nobles, who were also descendants of the sun, were allowed to wear golden jewelry, which were forbidden to other people. Narrator: when an Inca king died, his power was far from broken. As an immortal deity, he lived on in the community. His mummy was an indispensable advisor for the living. Thus, the great founder of the empire, Pachacutec, remains present after his death as a divine mediator between the worlds. Whispering in foreign language. Narrator: these mummies still had their servants who dressed and fed them. They accompanied the living Inca ruler on his journeys and took part in festivals. Tupac Yupanqui will also commit himself to this tradition as the successor of his father, and for him, too, the advice from the hereafter will be a decisive guide in his conquests. Stanish: the Inca had a very, very special kind of inheritance system where the new emperor did not inherit the wealth, but he inherited the mechanisms of power of the empire, and the new emperor had to go out and get new territory. Otherwise, he could not provide for his faction. The old emperor owned the old territory. His mummy, the actual mummy, was the owner of the previous conquest, and as long as this mummy existed, his clan, his group had access to that wealth. Narrator: to break the magic of the dead, the Spaniards were later to burn the mummies of all the rulers. In the eyes of the Inca people, an unbelievable regicide. Mortal remains of less prominent people have been preserved for research and provide insights into